Supporter of Mr. Trump. It's the journalist and former aide to Nigel Farage, Raheem Kassam. He's also in Washington, obviously where everyone is gathering. Who do you think would be a better ally for Britain as we exit the EU? A President Trump or a President Clinton?
Well, I think it's very clear, Joe. Donald Trump has said that in a time when Britain will need to do its own trade deals bilaterally, especially with one of our strongest allies in the United States, Donald Trump has said, you're not going to the back of the queue, you're not going to the back of the line. And as Simon rightly identified there, Hillary is very much the continuity candidate, and that means continuing the policies of Barack Obama, not just domestically, but internationally. And that means that Britain would stand at the back of the line when we Brexit and if she becomes president. And I think you don't just have to look to that. You have to look to what General Richards, Lord Richards, said earlier this week, when he actually identified that a Trump presidency might actually make the world safer. You know, Hillary Clinton comes from this neoconservative political establishment where they are convinced that endless wars are the way forward for the West.
Right,
and Donald Trump does not think so.
Let's test your theory that it would actually make it a safer and better place. He says he'll carry out an extreme and vicious campaign against Islamic State. What does that mean in practice?
Well, I mean, he wants to wipe them out,
right.
Not tinker around the edges.
He's not the only one to have said that, so what does it mean?
Well, it means not tinkering around the edges, as I say. You know, right now, at the moment, we and the Americans are funding one side in Iraq and the other side in Syria. We're funding the Kurds and we're funding the Turks.
Right,
and they're
so
fighting
coming
each
on the
other,
side of Vladimir Putin and Bashar al-Assad?
Well, I don't think it needs to be on the side of Vladimir Putin or Bashar al-Assad. But again, I will speak to what Lord Richards said this week, is that I think we're moving to a position where people are starting to realise, whether we like him or not, Assad doesn't seem to be going away. At some point, we're going to have to decide whether we hate him more or whether we hate the Islamic State more.
All right. Well, let's talk about some of the things you said at the beginning, that actually it would be better for Britain. Simon Burns, as you said, actually, if there is a Trump presidency, then America will fall off the edge of a cliff. But why should we believe anything that Donald Trump actually says? Because, of course, we cannot challenge any of the things he's promised. When he says there'll be a wall with Mexico, do you believe he'd actually deliver that?
Well, actually, I think, the wall, I've seen lots of different estimates about how much it would cost and the time it would take.
Would you deliver it?
Yeah, I think he would deliver it. I'm not sure it would be on schedule or on budget like most government projects aren't, but I think he would strive to deliver it. But I think the most important part of his policy platform, one that often gets ignored, is the trade element, is actually getting a better deal for the US and US workers out of international trade deals. And I think that would be his most long-lasting legacy if he becomes president.
Yeah, but it's all about believing in what he says and whether it's actually just rhetoric. Will the USA withdraw from NATO?
No, I don't think the United States withdraw from NATO, but I think NATO is imbalanced at the moment. You have NATO countries all around the world, and Britain gets a bad deal out of NATO as well. We are the only ones now above that 2% spending limit, along with Poland and the United States, and the rest of the NATO countries are piggybacking on us. So I think it's about redressing the balance of NATO and making sure that everyone pays their fair share. If they don't, we need to reconsider it.
Will he ban Muslims travelling to the US?
No, I think that was an early-on campaign throwaway line.
So it's all rhetoric.
Then got turned into something. Well, actually, here's what you do in business and in politics: is you throw a broad idea out there, and then you hear people out on what the comeback is. It's no use us playing this ideological, divided, partisan politics anymore when the country wants common sense solutions. And the way to get those common sense solutions out of people is to say, here's where I stand on it. Tell me where you stand on it, and we'll end up somewhere in the middle.
Right. Okay. Just let's have a sort of recap, if you like, of the early voting. We heard from Simon Burns. He believes it's going his way because of the large number of Latino voters. It's going to be impossible, isn't it, really, for Donald Trump to make up enough of the gap, although the polls are very tight nationally, in order to beat her?
Well, the Democrats are very good at early voting stuff. They're very good at these bulk ballots. That, in fact, there was a ruling out of Arizona yesterday that said they are no longer allowed to do that because it's basically tantamount to rigging the election and voter fraud. So they're very good at those things, and like the Labour Party in the United Kingdom, very good at the postal votes and so on and so forth. But it will come down to the day. I've seen the Nevada figures. I'm not entirely convinced that the mathematics are correct on those. But in terms of early voting, you are correct. She seems to have stolen some somewhat of a march. But again, I think when it comes down to will be the day of the election and how many people will turn out for her. You know, if you look at this as an outsider, you see two very clear things. One side is the Hillary Clinton side, who are, by data and in anecdotal evidence, not very enthusiastic about their candidate. And on the other side, great enthusiasm for somebody who wants to, as he says, drain the swamp of Washington, D.C. And I'm here right now, I can tell you it needs draining.
I'm going to have to stop you there, but thank you very much.